Okay, so you know how sometimes leading a team feels less like you're a strategic guide and more like you're trying to herd a bunch of squirrels that just drank a whole pot of coffee?
Oh, yeah, I get that for sure. All that energy, enthusiasm, and then trying to get everybody on the same page. That's the hard part.
Exactly. It's like they're all running in circles, but nobody really knows what the big picture is. So that's what we're diving into today. How to take a team that's all over the place and turn them into like a super focused, high-performing unit.
We're going to do that by looking at 3 leadership principles, really time-tested strategies that might sound simple, but they make a huge difference when it comes to, getting things organized.
Simple, but powerful.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about here. But before we get too deep, let's introduce ourselves. I'm the host for today.
And I'm the expert here with you today, ready to break down all this leadership stuff. Let's get rid of those squirrel suits and dive right in.
Sounds good. Our first principle is all about trust and credibility. Why is trust so important when you're leading a team?
We'll think about trying to build a house on top of like a foundation of jelly. It just wouldn't work right. Trust is like the bedrock of any team that really works. You can have the best strategy, the best ideas in the world, but if your team doesn't trust you, they're not going to get on board. They won't follow you.
Yeah, I can see that. If you don't trust the person in charge, why would you put your energy, your time into their vision?
Exactly. And building trust takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. It needs consistent action and honest and open communication all the time.
So what are some of the things that build trust? What should leaders really focus on if they want to build that strong foundation?
One of the big ones is consistency. If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. No empty promises, no changing plans at the last minute.
Yeah.
People need to know they can count on you, that you mean what you say.
So it's about being dependable.
Yeah.
Someone the team knows they can rely on.
Absolutely. And right up there with consistency is honesty. Being upfront with your team, even when things aren't great, even when you mess up, that's so important. Trying to hide problems or pretend everything's fine is only going to make people trust you less in the long run.
So like if a project's running behind schedule, it's better to just be honest about it than try to act like everything's okay.
Exactly. Transparency is key. Explain why there's a delay, tell them what you're doing to fix it, and be open to what your team has to say. People are way more likely to trust a leader who admits when things are tough and works with the team to get through it.
Like that saying, honesty might not always be easy, but it's always the right thing to do.
Right. Nobody likes working for somebody like that. Everyone wants to be on a team where information is shared freely, where everybody knows what's going on and feels like they can contribute.
So it's about moving away from that whole secrecy and control thing and going towards a more open and collaborative way of doing things.
Exactly. When information is shared openly, it creates trust and respect, and that leads to a team that's more involved and gets more done.
Okay, I'm starting to see the whole picture here. Consistency, honesty, and transparency. Those are the building blocks for being a leader people trust. But it's not just about building trust with the whole team. You also got to see and value what each person brings to the table, right?
Absolutely. And that takes us to our next principle, team building essentials.
All right, let's unpack this one. What are the key things we need to know about building a strong and tight-knit team?
Instead of thinking about a team as like a bunch of parts that are all the same, imagine it more like a puzzle. Each person brings something unique, their strengths, weaknesses, experiences, their own way of looking at things. The magic happens when you figure out how to fit those pieces together in the right way.
So you're not trying to find a bunch of people who all think and act the same way.
No way. In fact, studies show over and over again that teams with lots of different perspectives and backgrounds, those teams are more innovative and just more successful overall.
So how do you as a leader create that sense of belonging and teamwork in a group that's so diverse? How do you make a place where everyone feels valued and like they can do their best work?
One really good way is to encourage open conversations where everybody listens to each other. This means giving everyone a chance to share their ideas, even if they're different, or challenge the way things are usually done.
So no more shutting down the person in the office who always disagrees. Maybe their complaints actually have some good ideas hidden in there.
You never know. Sometimes the best ideas come from the people you least expect. And remember, really listening doesn't just mean hearing the words. It's about understanding what the other person is thinking, what motivates them, what they're worried about.
It's about making sure everybody feels like they can say what they think without people judging them or making fun of them.
Exactly. And when that happens, you'll see that people are more willing to try new things, to experiment, and to learn from each other's mistakes.
That's where you start to see that shift from chaos to order for real. When everybody feels heard and valued, they're more likely to believe in the vision and do their best to make it happen.
Totally. And another super important part of building a team is celebrating the small wins along the way. It's not just about reaching those big goals, it's about noticing and appreciating all the little things that each person does to help the team succeed.
So you're saying go beyond just saying good job and actually point out what people did well and who contributed.
Yes, when people feel seen and appreciated, they want to work even harder for the team.
It's like you're saying, hey, I see what you did. I appreciate it. You're a big part of why this team is doing so well.
Exactly. And remember, building a good team isn't just about those cheesy team building exercises.
You mean no more awkward trust falls or forced fun at the bowling alley?
While those things can have their place, the real heart of team building is about creating genuine connections, respect, and a sense of belonging.
So it's about making a place where people actually enjoy working together, not just putting up with each other.
Exactly. And when that happens, productivity goes way up and disagreements are easier to handle.
Speaking of disagreements, that's something that happens on every team.
It is. It's just a natural part of working together, like spilled coffee in a busy office.
So how do we deal with those disagreements in a way that helps the team grow and become stronger instead of dividing everyone and making people resent each other?
That's a great question, and one we'll get into right after this quick word from our sponsors. We'll be back in a minute to explore how to handle conflict without all the awkwardness. Stay with us.
We're back and ready to tackle conflict. You know those times when it feels like the whole team's about to blow up?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. But the thing is, conflict itself isn't always a bad thing. Actually, when you deal with it the right way, it can help your team grow, come up with new ideas, and become even stronger.
So you're not saying we should try to avoid conflict altogether. More like, we need to learn how to handle those disagreements so they're helpful instead of hurtful. You got it. It's about changing the way we think about conflict. Instead of seeing it as something bad, we can see it as a chance to learn and improve and make the team better.
Okay, I like where this is going. How do we actually make that change? How do we go from dreading those tense moments to seeing them as a chance to make things better?
One way is to have a clear plan for dealing with conflict, a framework that can guide us through those rough waters.
All right, I'm listening. What's this framework and how does it work?
It's a 3-step process that starts by figuring out the root cause of the conflict. We need to dig deeper than just the surface-level disagreement and understand what's really going on.
So like peeling back the layers of an onion, getting to the core of the problem.
Exactly. Is it a misunderstanding about who's supposed to do what? Is it a personality clash or people having different work styles? Is it that nobody's clear on the goals and what's expected? Until we figure out the real cause, we're just putting a Band-Aid on a bigger problem.
Okay, that makes sense. So once we found the root cause, what's the next step in this conflict resolution dance?
Step 2 is all about really listening, and I mean really listening. Not just waiting for your turn to talk or thinking about what you're going to say back.
Ah, the art of actually hearing what the other person's saying. No interrupting, no judging, no planning your argument while they're still talking.
You got it. Give each person the space to fully explain their point of view without being interrupted. And here's the important part. As you listen, try to understand their perspective, why they feel the way they do, what they're worried about.
No.
Even if you don't agree with them, put yourself in their shoes.
It's like that saying, seek first to understand, then to be understood. But I imagine that can be pretty hard when everybody's emotions are running high.
It definitely is. It takes practice and a conscious effort to set aside our own biases and assumptions, but it's worth it. When people feel like they're really being heard, it calms things down, creates more respect, and makes it easier to find solutions.
It's like pouring water on a fire instead of throwing more fuel on it. So we've identified the root cause. We've listened carefully now.
Why?
What's the final move in this conflict resolution strategy?
Step 3 is all about finding a solution where everybody wins.
So nobody's the bad guy. Nobody feels like they got steamrolled or silenced.
Right. The goal is to come up with a solution that addresses everyone's needs and concerns as much as possible. This might mean compromise, finding creative solutions, or even coming up with a totally new approach that nobody thought of before.
I'm all for finding solutions where everyone wins, but let's be real. Sometimes isn't it just impossible to make everyone happy?
True, you might not always be able to make everyone 100% happy, but it's still important to try to find a win-win solution. It shows respect for everyone involved, encourages people to work together, and helps build trust within the team.
So how do we actually go about finding those win-win solutions? Any practical tips or real-life examples you can share?
Definitely. Let's say you've got the classic marketing versus engineering feud going on.
Oh, I've seen that one firsthand. Lots of eye-rolling and sighing and passive-aggressive emails flying around.
It's like they're speaking different languages, each convinced they're the only ones who are right.
So how do you bridge that gap? How do you get those two departments to stop fighting and start working together?
One good way is to bring them together in a structured setting, like a workshop, where they can talk through their differences and come up with a new way of working.
So instead of letting them stew in their separate corners, you make them actually communicate and find some common ground.
Exactly. And here's the interesting part. A lot of times when those two departments actually start talking, they realize they have similar goals. They both want the product to be successful. They both want the customers to be happy, but they've just been approaching those goals in different ways.
And by working through those differences, they might come up with something even better, more innovative, and more effective than either department could have done on their own.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of win-win solutions. They don't just resolve conflict, they unlock new possibilities and bring the team closer together.
Okay, I'm seeing how this all fits together. But what about that person we talked about earlier, the one who always seems to disagree? How do you handle conflict when it seems like one person's always the one causing trouble?
That's where it's really important to include people from the beginning. Instead of waiting for them to get frustrated and blow up, involve them in the decision-making process right from the start.
So you're saying give them a voice, let them have a seat at the table, and they might actually become a valuable part of the team instead of a constant source of conflict.
It's amazing how much conflict you can avoid just by making people feel heard, respected, and like their opinions matter. And when that happens, even the biggest grump can become a strong supporter of the team's success.
This is all starting to make sense now. By dealing with conflict respectfully, by looking for win-win solutions, we're actually strengthening the team-building trust and creating a more positive and productive work environment.
Exactly. It's the opposite of forcing decisions or silencing dissent, which only leads to resentment problems and a whole lot of simmering frustration under the surface.
We've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about building trust, creating a collaborative team environment, and mastering the art of conflict resolution. But how do we know if we're actually making progress? How do we measure the effectiveness of our leadership? What does success really look like in this whole leadership transformation journey?
That is a fantastic question and one we will absolutely dig into a little bit later. We'll explore the tangible signs of effective leadership and give you some concrete benchmarks to measure your progress.
Okay, so we've talked about the principles, the frameworks, all those mindset shifts, but how do we know if it's really working? How do we know if we've gone from herding squirrels to actually leading a team that kicks butt?
That's the real test, right? You got to see those principles showing up in how the team acts, how they perform their whole energy.
So what are some real signs that our leadership is making a difference? What does success actually look like?
One of the biggest signs is that people are more engaged. You see them really participating in meetings, sharing ideas, taking initiative. They're not just there, they're all invested in the team's success.
So they've traded those squirrel suits for the superhero capes we talked about.
Exactly. And remember how we said trust is the foundation? Well, when you've got that solid foundation, you'll see less of those pointless conflicts, the ones that just drain everyone's energy and kill creativity.
So instead of those awful meetings where everyone's rolling their eyes and whispering to each other, we're having brainstorming sessions where everyone feels good about speaking up and sharing their ideas.
Exactly. And because there's a culture of open communication and respect, when disagreements do happen, they're handled in a way that actually makes things better and brings the team closer.
It's like the team has figured out how to take that conflict energy and turn it into something positive and productive.
Totally. And as a result, the team becomes more innovative and adaptable. They're not afraid to try new things, to experiment, to mess up and learn from it, because they know they've got a supportive environment to fall back on.
This is where we really see that shift from chaos to order happening.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. The team is more focused, more in sync, more driven. They all understand the goals and they're working together to reach them.
And that ultimately leads to better results.
Right.
Right. More gets done, the quality of work is higher, and everyone feels a sense of accomplishment.
For sure. It's a win-win for everyone. The team is doing great, the organization benefits, and you as a leader get to see the incredible power of good leadership in action.
So it's not just about checking things off a list. It's about making a workplace where everyone can do their best work and feel proud of what they're creating.
Exactly. And that brings us back to where we started, that feeling of being overwhelmed, like you're constantly chasing squirrels.
Right. And if you're listening and that feels familiar, you're not alone. And more importantly, you don't have to stay stuck there.
By using these 3 principles, building trust, encouraging teamwork, and handling conflict well, you can transform your team from a chaotic mess into a smooth-running, high-performing machine.
And it's not about some magic formula or a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about putting these principles into practice every day, making them part of who you are as a leader.
And the great thing is, anyone can do it. It doesn't matter what your job title is or what industry you're in. These principles are universal and they always work.
So if you're ready to get rid of that squirrel suit and step into your leadership superpowers and build a team that can't be stopped, remember this: trust is your foundation, teamwork is your engine, and conflict resolution is your secret weapon.
And remember, being a good leader is a journey, not a destination. There's always more to learn, more to grow, and more to achieve.
That's a great thought to wrap things up on. So keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep leading with your whole heart.
And until next time, may your teams be awesome, your coffee be strong, and your squirrels behave themselves.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you're enjoying the show, you can support us by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Jamie McAllister. For bonus content and behind-the-scenes stuff, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/McAllister.
Thanks for listening.